Right, we are live and ready to go, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So good evening, council, staff, the general public. Welcome to our regular council meeting of Monday, May the 17th. I will call the meeting to order. I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that the May 17, 2021 council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry now be open at 7 p.m. All in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. If I can ask everyone to please rise for the playing of our national anthem. Ms. LeBrun. Okay, thank you. So we'll move to number 3, the approval of the agenda. I have a motion moved by Lyle Wharton, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that the council of the Township of approve the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda, Madam Clerk?
Yes, there are, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we have a couple of additions under other business. The first being an item regarding hydro outages, which will be spoken to by Councillor Jaworski. We also have the addition of a discussion on the school board bell times, which has been requested to be added by Deputy Mayor Warden, as well as supporting for a resolution from the United Counties regarding outdoor recreational activities, also added by Deputy Mayor Warden. And then we have a number of items that have been requested to be moved from information only into other business for discussion. Those being item 7D1, the departmental update on corporate services, 7D2, the departmental update on finance services, 7D6, the departmental update on recreation and facilities, 7D7, Glen Walter Park Tree Management Plan, 7D8, Pitchin Canada participation results, and 7D14, the letter resolution request from MP Eric Duncan.
Okay, thank you. And they're all by Ms. Councillor Jaworski, I understand?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other additions from other members of council? Okay, so the motion would be as amended. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, I'll move to number 4. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? I have one in regards to the closed session portion. I'll declare a conflict of interest in regards to a property that would be discussed. It's listed with a property or a company that I am part owner of. So at that point of the closed session, I'll ask Deputy Mayor Warden to take that part of the meeting. Okay, thank you. And approval of the minutes. I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of South Glengarry held on May 3rd, 2021, including the closed session minutes, be adopted as circulated. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. And I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that the minutes of the public meeting of the Council of the Township of South Glengarry held on May 3rd, 2021 be adopted as circulated. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Okay, we're going to move right into presentations and delegations. I will ask Ms. Shauna Baggs if you're on with us. I understand that you'll introduce in regards to who our speaker is this evening.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is my pleasure to introduce Cascara Energy. Robert Croghan is the CEO and founder, and he's here tonight with his teammates, Ron Van Holst, who's community relations, and Eric Edwards, who is in charge of operations. This company has a really unique way of harnessing energy, and in both an environmental way and also in an innovative way. So both, they'll go into more details, but I'm excited for you to hear their presentation because it combines natural gas and high-speed internet, which is a really unique combination, and both of which South Glengarry is in need of. So I'll let Robert take it from here.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Robert.
Okay, all right. Well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to have this meeting with you or make this presentation. Did you want me to just go into the presentation, or do you want me to talk, or I'll just fire
Go
it
right
up?
into the
Okay.
Go right into the presentation if you would.
Okay. Let me just get my technology here. Okay. So I think we can do this. Bear with me 1 second, please. Okay. Okay, and I share my screen, right? Do I just share the screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thank you very much. So I just basically, okay, I'll go straight into it. So Cascara and Chow, we formed Cascara Energy as a new entrant into providing a alternative utility infrastructure. Chow for thermal energy. Chow is a division of Cascara Energy, which provides high-speed internet access, because when we deploy inside the public right away, we do a combined install at the same time, instead of coming through and ripping up the streets. And many times we just do it the once. So I just give a quick background of the journey of how we got here. Essentially, back in 1997, I was living in the Caribbean, and I was running operations down there, and we were obviously having the same thing as what remote communities have: poor internet and imported fuel into the island, basically through diesel generation for power. So we were sitting there looking at how do we go ahead and put together, how do we resolve these issues. We then went ahead and as we designed a vision of a unified network, basically co-installing a high voltage DC network connecting the Eastern Caribbean together and developing the renewable resources throughout the Caribbean. With that, I just want to show you this map here. You'll see that during the process, there was fiber optic cable coming into the islands, and you'll see that. We'll just talk briefly about this. I'll give you a quick map. This shows you how fiber optic cables are being installed over the last 20 years throughout the Atlantic and the Pacific, interconnecting the various continents. You can see over 20 years, you had a number of fiber optic cables laid. What happened was we noticed that these cables were going to be landing, the Trans-Pacific cables were predominantly going to be landing in Oregon. So I moved out to Portland, Oregon, and identified a building that would facilitate the landing of these cables. We then took a building, retrofitted it, and turned it into a carrier hotel, essentially for landing these submarine cables. And that was the Pittock block. And so then we started recognizing that there was issues with power and just growth. So So then we ended up back in St. Lucia, St. Vincent, developing the geothermal resources. We had exclusive agreements to develop the geothermal resources. That went on for pretty well a decade. Then we moved back to Toronto, built Dotto 1, which is still in existence. We went ahead and built a ISP fiber optic based network in the downtown Toronto area, connected about 3,000 customers, and that's in operation right now. So in 2016, with that collective experience, I went ahead and said, okay, we need to start optimizing the construction or the use of public right-of-ways to develop, to consolidate thermal energy resources and for a hybrid district energy network. And that's not really the reason why I'm here, but I'm talking about it, but I was just going through. We have the Cascara, and then the Chow internet rides along with that. So what we have is so Chow and Cascara form a hybrid district energy network. We put in thermal network, a microgrid, and telecommunication networks at the same time. We're part of the Mars Clean Tech Acceleration Program, and we're in partnership with EPCOR on another project. And you'll see how EPCOR fits in with this. So we're doing some projects with EPCOR at this moment in district energy. So what we do is we provide energy security, reduction of imported energy into the community, and a rapid decarbonization of energy, all important issues in today's format. So we do that by putting in an energy transfer station inside the customer's premises, and we provide energy as a service to those customers by providing electricity where we can, and heating and cooling, that's the thermal load, along with the fiber optic network. So when we deploy our network at the same time, so in the discussion, and I think that's where I'm having a little, I realize the presentation might be a little bit off, because what's happened is we talked about the Cascara Energy, which we're not going to deploy Cascara Energy as a hybrid district energy network in the community. Our primary focus is the fiber optic network co-joined with a natural gas network. And we can walk through that in a little bit of how that natural gas network will work in the overall picture, because you have to have decarbonization with natural gas, because obviously we'll have a lot of questions with that. So when we deploy fiber, I just want to show you what the difference is. Everyone talks about Elon Musk and Starlink, and they talk about average speed here. And so when you do you have a 80 megabits down, 13 megabits up is your current the current internet speeds with Starlink. Now, Elon Musk himself has stated that this will increase up to about 300. That's a total. So you just basically double the speeds there, and your latency drops to less than 20 milliseconds. But what happens is that you really should have fiber to the home, and that's really the best way to have a future-proof your community for telecommunications. And so when we look at fiber, when you look at the carrying capacity, this is to scale. One strand of fiber can carry 25 terabits at today's technology of information. So you see a twisted pair of telephone wire be about 100 megs. You can probably push that to about a gigabit right now, and then microwave, which is the 5G, etc. Home wireless, you'll have 2 gigabits per second, and the coax cable 10 gig. But you can see that really what you need is a fiber to the home, and it's true fiber to the home is what you should have. The reason for that is when you're looking at the way the capacity that's growing on the internet access. Right now, I can go out and buy an 8K television for $1,500, 65 inch. And that on any other network other than a fiber optic network, my experience would be pretty poor. And what we're seeing is that you're having a larger adaptation of technology into the home, and hence you're going to have increased demand. And just as we're all at home right now, you have to have pretty good internet to be able to have all the connectivity issues we have. When we look at when we look at the offering or the current offering, when you look at the speeds here, when Bell, and this is, I think, critical, When you look at a Bell advertises a 1.5 gigabit downstream with a 940 megabit upstream, and they say it's $130. So then you go, well, what's my comparative choices here? And you look at Rogers. Well, Rogers just has a download speed. They don't show that you have an upload speed. So what happens is if you're on a Rogers network, you do a speed test. Most of the times, it's only 1/10 of the download speed. So we, in our network, we actually deploy fiber to the home. We give you full symmetrical internet and unlimited bandwidth. And then if you take ExploreNet, you'll see it's 50/10. The Canadian government basically says the 50/10 is good enough broadband internet. And I was showing you on the previous slide that it's not really, it's not substantial. The difference that you need symmetrical, which is equal upload and equal download speeds, are so you can upload large files, you can share video, and obviously video conferencing. So what happens here is our network, when we deploy the fiber, we deploy up to 10 gigabit residential service. So it's 10,000. So you see here on the side, this is if you go to speedtest.net and you run in your internet service, you'll see, you can do your own test and you'll see what your upload and download speeds are. In our network, we have under 1 millisecond of latency, which is a substantial difference. So we do, so that's just the benefits of our network. And these are our standard pricing right now. We're in the process of deploying the service in the region of York, in the north area. And then you would be the second area for the ultra high speed internet access. So our target area this is our target area, obviously, and this is from the Canadian site. Ron can tell a little bit more about this, but this is the site, and you can see this is the current capacity of internet within your community, and this is from the Canadian government. So you'll see 50/10 is in Lancaster, and then everywhere else is 5/10. So our proposal is to come into the area and deploy in the first instance inside this first area of between Lancaster and Baynesville would be a natural gas with a fiber optic system, fiber to the home, and deploying concurrently at the same time a natural gas hookup. This is why it comes back to EPCOR. EPCOR has expressed interest to work with us, or they want to work with us to be the operator for it. I don't know if you are aware of it right now that EPCOR is the operator of the Southern Bruce, a natural gas network up in that area. So they're currently operating. I don't know if you guys know EPCOR. Do you know EPCOR? Yeah. Okay, so EPCOR is it's the equivalent of Toronto Hydro. They're the utility for the city of Edmonton. They have I think their revenue is about $3 billion. They have 3 million customers, and they're the equivalent of Toronto Hydro for the city of Edmonton. So we would deploy in the first instance in this area would be a co-build natural gas with fiber optic. So Chow and Cascara, we've already received TSSA approval to bundle fiber with natural gas. We're the only company in essentially Canada right now that has the approval from the TSSA to deploy natural gas at the same time with fiber. So that's usually there has to be a clearance. What we do is that fiber optic also provides safety and security to the natural gas network. There's a number of things that we can do, but we can identify intrusion, vibration, road slippage, a number of stressors that would happen on a normal natural gas network. We can now identify that far before it occurs. EPCOR is the existing natural gas provider in Ontario. Obviously, they've expressed interest to co-develop this with us. So what we're asking right now is asking for the township to get a letter of support, which we would present to the OEB to essentially, be able to deploy natural gas and fiber in the target area. For that, we're going to request a convenience letter from the OEB to construct the natural gas network. There's nothing stopping us from deploying the fiber network, other than we need permission from the township. But the deploying the natural gas, we have to go through the OEB regulatory. By jointly putting the two networks together, we create a synergy of construction, of cost. So what we're able to do is all the soft costs for deploying doing all the design work, the construction crews, everything is concurrent at the same time. So that significantly reduces the overall cost for the natural gas and the fiber. So when we take a look at currently, Enbridge has 2 grant applications, but one for the area that we targeted. They're asked the Ontario government for $7 million to deploy natural gas within that area. So together, when we can deploy both natural gas and fiber at the same time, we have higher efficiencies. We're actually a little bit less than that. So what that does is it enables us to be able to bundle the 2 utilities together and deploy at the same time. So when we look at what are the next steps, we're presenting to the township to request a letter of support from the township to approve a model franchise agreement. With that, we will apply to the OEB for the certificate of public necessity, and also concurrently the model franchise agreement. And then obviously as we go through that, we'll have a better idea, because we have to go through and find out where Enbridge sits with the application. So in there, and then we just go through permitting, and then we go to leave construction, and then we do construction. So that is really that's that's it. I mean, it's not much. I don't know what more to say. That's our presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much for your presentation. Can I ask to take down the slides just so I can see every member of council?
Sure.
Thank you.
Is that it?
There we go. Thanks very much, Robert.
Well, thank you.
So I will open it up to questions from members of council. I'll go to Deputy Mayor Warden, if you would.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This all sounds wonderful. There's lots of money involved at stake. Is there any commitment? Are you looking for any financial commitment from the municipality?
No, that's why we're not. The economic merit of deploying the 2 assets at the same time, and the revenue from that as a monthly fee, it makes it stand on its own merit.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jaworski.
All right. Thank you,
Hi.
through you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. I was just hoping you could re-explain. I'm sorry, I don't think I quite followed the franchise agreement piece. What does that exactly mean again?
So I don't know. It's basically the right to use the public right of way to deploy the asset. So it's just a standard agreement. In Toronto, we have a franchise agreement. And there's a model one that's been put out by the OEB that's a fairly standard.
Okay.
Well, it's a standard
Thank you.
document. So.
Okay, thank you. And a supplemental, please.
Go ahead.
Sure. So in terms of doing this similar work in rural areas, can you give some examples again in Ontario?
Yeah, well, okay, so I don't, for this type, there's nowhere in Ontario has fiber and natural gas been concurrently installed at the same time. So you're the first community. So, but in regards to deployment of fiber, we have it separate in Toronto. We have a municipal access agreement with the city of Toronto that allowed us to put the fiber in. We installed the fiber downtown Toronto and connected up 5 buildings that did not have fiber access at the time. The digital divide is actually building by building in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Some buildings have fiber and a building across the street doesn't have fiber. So it's really an interesting dynamic. So it's almost the same as communities.
And why do we have the pleasure of being the first ones that you're looking at?
I think that if you fit perfectly, it's a great closed market. So in our OEB application, you happen to be under, by Enbridge's application, you happen to be 19.5 kilometers of ductwork, right? Of natural gas network to be deployed. Under 20, anything under 20, we don't need a permit. So anything under 20, and then everything under, and then the next step is 4 million cubic meters of annual gas is the proposed target. So in our system, we're proposing to provide some, instead of putting furnaces in, you put heat pumps in, and the heat pumps reduce the overall gas usage. So we increase the efficiency of the overall system from getting out of the box. So and Enbridge and all the other utilities don't do that because they want to maximize their gas consumption. We just come in with a different business model where we do a monthly charge, and then how much gas you use is just a commodity rate. But we really want you to use no gas, right? Because it's the greenhouse gases. It's pretty, the use of natural gas for space heating is a very high greenhouse gas issue. The next item is in our application, the OEB. What we've done is we will introduce some hydrogen into the network, and there's hydrogen combined. It's called H2NG. And that does is all those numbers reduce the overall usage of natural gas, which is great because it reduces your overall pricing, but you still get the same heating value for your home. So you end up with, it actually works out really well where you're geographically located to a large hydrogen source in Montreal. I don't know if you read up about it. They're building a large hydrogen facility. So it's easy to get. We actually have sources of natural gas that are easy to get to you. So, and I didn't want to go through too much of the stuff here on a public forum, but but we have some competitive edges that are going to be fun. So we'll just see. We'll see what happens, how Enbridge reacts to it, because of their, they've stated that it's, $9 million to build out this asset. And we believe, well, we know we can do it far more economically overall. So I don't know if that's it's just a really nice target area. I didn't have another slide, but it's really the model of what Cascara wants to do in the long version. That's why I tried to show that journey right at the beginning. There's a number of communities all throughout Canada that are really isolated in the same scenario. They do not have fiber and they do not have natural gas. And you really don't want them to migrate fully to natural gas, especially when we're having a carbon tax that's increasing up to $130 a ton. Because what's the purpose of putting in a full natural gas line without being able to migrate you to a lower carbon solution during that path? Because that's an unsustainable unsustainable path. So.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions or comments from members of council? Not seeing none. Gentlemen, thanks very much for your presentation. Your presentation will go back to Mrs. Baggs, and Mrs. Baggs will come back at a later council meeting with more information for council to make a decision in regards to a letter of support.
All right, well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
All right, thanks very much. Have a great night.
Care. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move into new business staff reports. Requests to purchase unopened road allowance. Mr. LeBlanc.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Good evening, everyone. And through you, Mr. Mayor. So administration has received a request from the property owner of 1959 Lacaire Road to purchase an unopened road allowance to the east of the property. The unopened road allowance is located between 19596 Lacaire Road and Concession 1, Part Lot 4. So there are no concerns from the Roads Department regarding the sale of this unopened road allowance, as there is no anticipated need to access the road allowance for municipal purposes. The GM of Planning, Building and Enforcement has reviewed the request and has no concerns from the use of land perspective, as this unopened road allowance will not serve any future development. In order to proceed with the sale of the unopened road allowance, the following steps will be necessary. Council must declare an unopened road allowance a surplus, which can be done by resolution this evening. Administration will conduct a search to determine any other property owners abutting the unopened road allowance and will be contacted in writing to their interest in the purchase of the lands. Adjacent landowners will be afforded 3 weeks to respond. Should there be no interest shown by the other abutting landowners, if the applicant will be given the opportunity to purchase this land. Prior to the sale of the land, notice will be given to the public of the proposed closing and sale of the road allowance. The municipality will obtain an appraisal for the fair market value of the unopened road allowance. All costs incurred for the road closing are borne to the applicant. There will be no expense to the township. Should the applicant then choose to proceed with purchasing of the unopened road allowance, a report will be brought to council to stop and close the road allowance and the sell to the applicant. The sale of the unopened road allowance will result in additional funds, which will be determined through an independent appraisal and will have no impact on the budget, 2021 budget. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to questions. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a couple questions. Does the subject property, if this council decides that it is considered surplus to the needs, does it merge with the landowner who is wanting to purchase? And second, currently the township has a realtor on hand, and I'm not sure if it's something that they can handle. You know, I don't know if our bylaws permit that, but it seems as though it potentially could. Wondering if staff has examined that angle. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, Mr. LeBlanc or even Mr. Simpson? I'm sorry, Mr. Mills?
I can look into that shortly.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, yourself and maybe staff, is this something that we've done fairly often? I kind of thought, and we haven't done it since I've been here, but I thought we had a policy we didn't sell our unopened road allowances. Now I understand this one really can go nowhere because 401 is right there and it's very short, just the length of the lot. But is it normal for us to declare unopened road allowances surplus and to sell them, or have we got any kind of a policy on it at all?
I was going to ask Mrs. Haley just to jump in at that point, because I remember going back a number of years that there was lots of discussion with the former mayor, Mr. McLeod. So go ahead, Mrs. Haley.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So through you, Mr. Mayor, we have made some exceptions in the past, and our clerk could probably confirm an amendment that was made to our bylaw that allows us to be able to sell land that we feel is no longer needed, or road allowances that are no longer needed, to an abutting property owner. And that might help answer Mr. Warden's question a little bit. Examples of where we've closed unopened road allowances, I can think of one in Brownhouse Corners area for the Sturkenbroom Farm. Similar situation where the unopened road allowance divided between County Road 18 and Little Fifth. And I can think of another area as well, where I believe it was Glen Norman, where an unopened road allowance was closed. So there has been some anomalies. And when we receive these applications or requests, we do have to accept them and look at them and review them to make sure we're not negatively impacting any future growth or development. And in this case, as someone just mentioned, it really is going nowhere or leading to any future opportunities. And those have been the same in the other road allowances that we've sold in the past or closed in the past. So I hope that helps answers your question.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll go back to Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through Mr. Mayor, yeah, I'm pretty sure we did one this term of council, Mr. Lang. It was in Glen Nevis, and there was it was going to cross the river about 6 or 7 times before it hit the Quebec border. So we closed it up right at Glen Nevis, right at the edge of the hill before you went down into the gully of the Badet River.
All right, I don't remember it, but thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you. Thank you through you, Mayor. I do remember Deputy Mayor Warden, the one in Glen Nevis that we did do. But my comment is I just want to be to Councillor Lang's point, this particular road allowance doesn't really seem like it could have any other purpose. Like I don't see any recreational possibilities for it or the like. So as long as we're keeping with our policy, I don't have a concern about disposing it. But one thing that's very important from my perspective is that we assure that both property owners on either side have the opportunity to participate in that sale. And I know it seems that one, it might be less local. And so I just want to highlight that I'm hoping that staff will, take all the steps required to ensure that we connect with that property owner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, and just to speak on the, from a policy point of view. So our sale and purchase of property bylaw does have a section that's specific to road allowances. And essentially it speaks to a lot of what's already been said, namely that, the township will not typically consider stopping up and closing unopened road allowances unless there isn't really any future development or movement of traffic anticipated in that location. So that is what we're essentially looking at in this case. And then the policy further talks about, selling to an adjacent or abutting property owner when it makes sense with planning. So we're not prohibited from doing it by any of our policies. We do not have a policy that's specific to the process for the sale of an unopened road allowance. However, adding on to Councillor Jaworski's comment, and as is outlined in the staff report, we do have a plan for communicating and reaching out to other property owners who are also abutting that unopened road allowance to make sure it's a fair and transparent process.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, not hearing none. Madam Clerk, I presume there's a motion, the recommendation that I have. I don't have the original motion like this one, so I'll just read it off the agenda. So I'm not sure where that happened to it. But.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I went through everything. I don't have it, but
Oh.
I presume it's the same one that's in our council package.
It would be the same that's in the council package. Yeah.
So I'll read that one and then we can fill out the document later.
Okay.
So I have a motion. I don't even know who would be moved by and second by at this point. So we'll change it, I guess, if we have to. So I'll have it moved by Deputy Mayor Warden, second by it was Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that the staff report 69-2021 be received and that the council of the Township of South Glengarry declare the unopened road allowance located between the property PIN numbers 67124-0112 and 67124-0092 to the east of 19596 Lapeer Road be declared surplus to the needs of the township. You heard the motion. All in favor of that motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. And we'll move to temporary use zoning amendment, Liftomatic Lifts Incorporated. Mrs. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this property is described as part of Lot 2, Concession 1, located on the North Service Road just west of Fifth Line Road. And it is currently a vacant parcel of property in terms of no permanent development. It's approximately 8 acres in size, and it is primarily a treed lot with some cleared area close to the road. In March, we received an application for a temporary use bylaw. We were made aware of a cabin and a chicken coop on wheels that were placed on the subject property without approvals. So after working with the property owner and that property owner wanting to gain compliance, we deemed that the best way to do so was to apply for a temporary use zoning amendment. So on March 30th, we received an application for the zoning amendment, and it was circulated and deemed complete on April 12th. We held a public meeting at our last council meeting in regards to this proposed use. And at that public meeting, you may recall that we did hear from two members of the public that lived nearby this proposed or this subject property with the proposed use. And unfortunately, they did not have all positive comments to support it. In reviewing the application, administration or myself has no issues with recommending the temporary use bylaw to be approved for the purposes of a cabin. Our zoning bylaw currently allows cabins to be permitted on rural properties subject to a temporary use approval. Temporary use would give you approval up to a period of 3 years with the ability to ask council for additional extensions. And in the staff report, I provided to you what a definition of a cabin means. So it's meant to really use as a very temporary basis, a lot of times used for hunting purposes or just for an overnight stays or quick enjoyment of the property. They contain no culinary or sanitary facilities, and they cannot be larger than cannot be smaller than 9 square meters and not larger than 28 square meters. We had no provisions in the zoning bylaw for a chicken coop on wheels. And the reason for that is because if you're going to build an agricultural facility, you would be required to build that facility to meet code and to meet the required size. In this particular case, I feel that the proposed chicken coop on wheels is really a way of getting around the rules as such, which is why we triggered the temporary use zoning amendment. But it's something that I'm not recommending, as it's not the best use for this property. There's definitely have been concerns raised about being able to feed the chickens, provide water source to the chickens. And we feel that if the property owner wants to be able to have poultry on the site, then they must build a building to be able to accommodate the chickens. So in summary, I am recommending to council that the temporary use be approved in part to allow for the placement of the cabin and not to allow for the chicken coop as currently existing on site. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have if they want further information for my rationalization. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Haley. I'll go to open questions. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Haley, if the applicant was to construct a chicken coop basically under 103 square feet or whatever, does that trigger, would they still have to obtain a building permit or does it not meet the threshold for that? And would that alleviate the issue we have with the zoning?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the applicant is required to have a primary use on the subject property. So building a chicken coop that's less than 10 by 10 to avoid the building permit process is considered an accessory structure. So you're either going to build a single family dwelling in the rural zone, or you're going to build an agricultural building in the rural zone. And that would not fit as an agricultural building example.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I agree with the reasoning, and the reason I do is that I don't like the idea that they're having them there. No one's there to look after them. Although there are agricultural operations that have livestock on a farm where no one lives, but it's a daily occurrence, part of their chores. They go there, but they usually have wells and so forth. Just something to keep in mind. It is becoming more common to put chicken coops on wheels. People are doing what they call free range chickens. They're moving these chickens around, a field, this sort of thing. So it's not unheard of. Although I went by the property, I don't think that's what they're doing there. They have very little of it cleared. It's mostly brush and bush. So they can't move the coop very far. But it's just something to keep in mind that is starting to happen, that people are moving their chickens around with the coop on wheels just to be able to rotate them and let them, free range in different areas. So, but I think, at this point, if there's no water, there's no power. I don't know if there's power. I don't know. Is there power there?
Yes.
So maybe if they drilled a well or something and, had some way of looking after these animals, now it just seems like they're there, but unless people are staying there.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing none. I do have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Martin Lang, be resolved that staff report 70-2021 be received in the bylaw 41-2021, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 38-09, the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the township of South Glengarry for the property legally described as part of Lot 2, Concession 1, North Service Road in the geographic township of Lancaster, now in the township of South Glengarry, the county of Glengarry, to permit the placement of a cabin that is 96 square feet in size as a temporary use. Be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council, the 17th day of May 2021, that the council of the township of South Glengarry confirms that they considered all oral submissions pertaining to this proposed amendment. Any further questions? Not seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you, Mrs. Haley. And
Mr.
number
Mayor?
2. Sorry.
May I
Deputy
just
Mayor
ask
Byrne?
a quick question? Ms. Haley, so now that this has passed, will the landowner be told to remove the chickens from the property?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll be issuing a formal notice of decision as required under the Ontario Planning Act. And then we will be working with the property owner to give them an appropriate amount of time to relocate the animals.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Number 3 is the Cameron Site Plan Control Agreement. Mrs. Haley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the property that we're speaking of this evening is located in part of Lot 10, Concession 1, Broken Front Indian Lands, in the village or settlement area of Glen Walter, and is located at 18240 County Road 2. This parcel of property is currently developed with a small single detached dwelling, and it's connected to municipal water and wastewater services, and it is proposed to be redeveloped with a new dwelling. This property was subject to a minor variance application in recent weeks, where the applicant looked at reducing the watercourse setback in the southwest corner of the property to square off the building. And they're building on the existing footprints with the exception of the steps that will be located on the north side or at the front door of the property to be able to provide access to the property. Every property on the south side of County Road 2 along the water is subject to site plan control. And so the next steps of the process following the minor variance was to prepare a site plan. That site plan was then circulated to both the Raisin Region Conservation Authority as well as the United Counties. Both agencies have reviewed the site plan, and the United Counties had no comments, and the Raisin Region Conservation Authority supported the site plan and requires that an Ontario regulation permit be issued before the township can issue a building permit. So if this is approved this evening, the next step will be for the developer to apply for the applicable permits with both the RCA and the township. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to members of council for any questions or comments. It's pretty self-explanatory, I think. So if not, I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that staff report 71-2021 be received in that bylaw 42-2021 and the site plan control agreement for the property legally described as part of Lot 10, Concession 1, Broken Front Indian Lands in the geographic township of Schlumberg, now in the township of South Glengarry, county of Glengarry, also known as 18240 County Road 2. You read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council the 17th day of May 2021. And furthermore, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the site plan control agreement. You heard the motion, all in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. And Mrs. Haley, number 4 would be the agreement, Ryman Farm Peanut Line Crossing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this staff report and agreement and describes to you what the requirements will be for the Rymans to be able to consistently utilize the crossing of the peanut line to access their new dairy barn. So the property that we're speaking about is located at 20212 Cedar Grove Road. As you are aware, a dairy barn as well as a manure storage facility is currently being constructed on the south side of the Peanut Line on property owned by the Ryman family farm. And the property is approximately 63 acres of currently vacant land. This development was subject to a minor variance process to reduce the minimum distance separation from the manure storage facility to the property lines. And at that time, when it was reviewed by the Committee of Adjustment, which is council, they had recommended that a formal agreement be established to ensure that there are terms that the property owner needs to follow to make sure that we're doing the best we can to reduce liability for users of the Peanut Line that would be traversing the line on a consistent basis. And we don't want any accidents to occur with the consistent usage or crossing of the Rymans to the dairy barn, whether it's the milk truck or tractors or even pickup trucks going back and forth on a regular basis. So there's a few things that I would like to point out to you in the site plan control agreement. If you can bear with me, I just need to get to that part of the agenda here. And this is the first time we've seen an agreement like this where we're requiring a property owner to enter into the agreement to make sure we have the safe use of the Peanut Line. We worked very closely with our fire chief, Dave Robertson, who's also the acting director for recreation and facilities. And we have attended the site on a couple of occasions where we met with the Rymans to better understand what their proposed development is and the layout is. And that helped us write the agreement to make sure we were capturing everything. Also, I appreciated council's feedback on the memo that we wrote and provided to council at our last council meeting to establish the template for future agreements to make sure we're capturing all of council's wishes, again, just to ensure safe usage and safe crossing of the Peanut Line. So in the attached agreement, we outline the works that are to be provided by the Rymans, as well as works that are to be provided by the municipality. We talk about signage, and there's some cases where we request the Rymans to install stop signs on their property. And we have also agreed to install stop signs and other signage at the expense of the Rymans. And the reason for the municipality installing those signs is to make sure that we are satisfied with the location that they're being installed with, again, to ensure a safe crossing. We also require a setback for any debris, movable structures, vegetation, vehicles along that location, which I want to go back to in a second. We are asking the Rymans to provide insurance coverage, that we would have a policy or certificate of insurance in the name of the municipality in our office, so that if anything were to occur, that we hope that any claims would go against the property owner first before it would go against the township. We also have provisions in there that if we needed to enter the property, whether to do any inspections or required repairs. And we also require that this agreement be registered on title, just in case there are future property owners, as well as any mortgage holders, so that they're aware of the restrictions. So the reason why I want to go back to number 5 of the agreement is I did have a conversation with a council member today in regards to the intent of the setback. And Fire Chief Robertson may speak to this as well. But the purpose of the setback, in our opinion, was really because of the crossing in this location. We wanted to make sure there was no debris close to the travel portion of the Peanut Line that would impact anybody's sight lines, so that they can clearly see 20 meters east and west of the crossing. They can clearly see if someone's traversing the property. Although I do understand that Councillor Jaworski may want to speak to this, because we may not have captured the wishes of council in this location. So I certainly look to council's feedback on this to make sure we are proposing the best, written agreement we possibly can.
Okay, thank you. Chief Robertson, did you have anything to add before we go to questions, or do we want to go right to questions?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. I will open it up to members of council. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. On my travels down the Peanut Line earlier this spring, one of the things that was noted was that there was some bales of hay on the township's property. And that to me would be my only concern, is that the property lines are respected. And as Ms. Haley said, with the setbacks, I think it's imperative because there have been users of that trail for going on 10 years or more. And this stop sign is going to be something that is new. And I do hope that staff intend to install those bright fluorescent circular signs that you see on a roadway whenever there's something new. I hope that's in the plans as well, as I think it will catch some travelers off guard. But other than that, I think it's fairly well written.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lang and then Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I have a little bit of concern with the stop sign on the peanut line. I like the ideas of the stop sign on the landowner side. If we decide that we're going to put up a stop sign everywhere that there's landowners crossing the peanut line, there's going to be a lot of them. Like every farm, they're going across. I know this is a busier one than normal because they're going to have a dairy barn on one side and part of the farm operation on the other side. So I just want to make sure we're putting a little bit of thought into that, whether we want to actually have, as far as pedestrians or bicycles, it's not going to be a big deal, but snowmobiles and four-wheelers are going through there regularly. So if they're going to have to stop, it's basically going to be a four-way stop now by the sounds of it. Do we want to start that precedent? So are other landowners then going to ask for stop signs wherever, we cross, they have a crossing as well? Something to think about there. And the sightline idea, I think, is a good idea. We have to keep this so we can see both ways. Lyle is right. The round bales would have been, it would have been tough to see somebody approaching with the bales and stuff piled there.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. I do agree with Councillor Lang in regards to the four-way stop, I guess. I'm not sure if I agree with that totally, but maybe that's an opportunity where we get from the RFP that in regards to the penal line study, and they may have recommendations with respect to that. So hopefully there'll be something in there, and we'll wait for that and see what comes out of that one. Councillor Jaworski, please.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just on the topic of the setback. So in my reading of the agreement, it says a 6-meter setback from the traveled portion of the peanut line. So that would be 18 feet on either side of the traveled portion, where we're saying, that it should be kept clear. But I guess, in reading that in the reverse, that means that it's okay if there's structures or vehicles, movable or immovable, that would actually be on township property, because that 18 feet from the traveled portion doesn't cover the full width of what the township owns. So, and I understand that the RMMs have been really great to work with. And so I don't know if maybe like something that would be, so not to incur more cost to them. This is a new exercise. I think we're all, this is the first time in doing it, maybe as a show of good faith, maybe, the township could do a survey there to clearly demarc where the edges of the property lines are. Because I don't think it's so much of a setback issue. I think it's more of a respecting the property line issue. So that's my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Chief Robinson.
Hi there, through you, Mr. Mayor. So administration, we evaluated this site, and maybe I can combine the last two questions and comments also from Councillor Lang. We evaluated the site. We wanted to address the fact that it's not a public intersection, but it's also definitely going to be a busier intersection than the vast majority of the other agricultural crossings that we have throughout the system. With that, we wanted to put stop signs in with advanced signage advising that there is an upcoming stop sign, so that the physical item with the crossing can be addressed. Seasonal changes or minor rutting or things like that or changes in elevation, snow removal, all of those types of things we evaluated through the different seasons. we feel for safety reasons, the best course of action is to have a stop sign in all directions at that location, just because we cannot guarantee the difference in terrain. Let's say when the snow groomer goes through versus the snow blower going through in the opposite direction, trying to keep it right at a gravel level. So, so we looked at all those items. In regards to the setbacks, we were cognizant of the communities and also the municipalities' desires to keep as much vegetation on portions of the trail that we can. There's other locations where farmers are actually using right up to the trail, and that's sort of been historical, right up to the traveled portion. So our main concern is the temporary storage of items within that would interfere with the sight lines at those intersection spaces. Not so much in the traveled areas where they're outside of those setbacks. We can allow vegetation in essence, and there's locations where there's no trail bed. There's crop growing right to the sides, and there's only 2 or 3 meters in width, if that. Taking all those factors into consideration, with the agreement, we're trying to focus just on the intersection spaces where we don't want people to either be parking temporary items, be they vehicles, be they storage, or temporary buildings. So that was administration's thought process in steering towards this, what we've put into the agreement. So.
Okay, thank you. Did you have anything further, Councillor Jaworski?
I appreciate the explanation, but I guess it's a different vision than what I was having. Again, it's a new agreement. It's a newish situation. I guess I think it's fair to say this is the first barn with animals that are going to be on the other side of the peanut line. So I think that in this case, because of the amount of activity, I think we need to be more prescriptive. I think in terms of where the property lines are, just because it can blur quite quickly. And I think clear property lines make better neighbors.
So if I may, Mr. Mayor, we can do that in 2 ways. We can have the official survey locations marked out, or we can do them alongside with the landowner at no cost, because we can take our own in-house surveys and measure those out and mark them. They would obviously not be official markings, but I'll leave that to council for your direction.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Deputy Mayor Warden, then Mrs. Haley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to the 4-way stop, was there outside consultation on that? Because anytime that I'm listening to the county engineer in regards to 4-way stops, they're actually more hazardous. And I'm glad Councillor Lang brought that point up. Was there any official consultation on that, or is just staff thinking that it'd be safer? Because I know Ben DeHaan, the county engineer, has said their statistics in regards to that 4-way stops are more hazardous. So I'm just wondering what the methodology was to come to that conclusion.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We did not reach out to the counties, or this decision was made within South Glengarry staff. We had the discussion just referencing the safety issues right at the intersection as far as from the physical grading. That is not something, quite honestly, that we had considered. We can reach out to the counties. As far as a timeline on this, I guess maybe I'll bring Mrs. Haley into the conversation about delaying it with that information, as far as getting the agreement into place.
Go ahead, Mrs. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So further to that comment from the fire chief, yeah, and I'm not even sure consultation is really required with the United Counties. Maybe we just look at the Ontario provincial standards to determine what's the safest way to manage, an informal intersection, if you will, because this in any means is not an intersection under the Highway Traffic Act. But in regards to looking for council's feedback to make sure I've written the agreement correctly and captured your needs, I'm still not overly clear if you feel a setback with no debris allowing for, safe sightlines is acceptable, or do you want us to start saying that nothing can be located within the allowance of the peanut line? And I just want to make sure that I have that clear direction. The other comment in terms of the timing, you may have noticed that the Schedule C indicates that we would insert the drawings that are provided to us from Enbridge and Hydro One, so we can show the location of the utilities. So we brought it to you really with it being incomplete and asking permission to be able to insert that. If council feels that we're rushing by approving it this evening, I don't see an issue with deferring it this evening. And we can come back at the next council meeting with more information in regards to the four-way stop, as well as if you need me to change anything in that section regarding the setback, we can certainly do so. Really, we were feeling that we were behind getting this before council because of the commitment that was made. So it's nice to get things on the agenda and keep them moving, even though Schedule C was incomplete. The Rymans have been emailed a copy of this draft agreement. They are aware that it was going to council this evening for discussion. We can explain to them why it wasn't approved this evening or deferred if those are council's wishes. I think we're more at your hands this evening to make sure you're happy with the agreement as opposed to us rushing it. And when it's before you, you know that we're almost there, and it would be approved quite quickly if need be. Unless Fire Chief disagrees with me on that, but I think the Rymans would understand as well.
Okay, I think Councillor Lang had his hand up, and then Deputy Mayor Warden. Councillor McDonald, you have, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and through you. A couple of points. As far as an actual survey, my personal opinion is we don't need an actual survey unless we have a discrepancy. But if we can have staff go out and meet with Rymans, and if both can say, yes, this is the width of the peanut line, within a foot or so, I don't think we need to be, down to the 1/8 of an inch as a survey would be. I would be more than happy with that, just to make sure that both parties are agreeing that, this is basically the boundaries. And as from what Councillor Dworsky is saying, I'm kind of on the same page here. So are we kind of saying we want to keep some sight lines, but because other farmers are using the peanut line, we're going to be okay with them using part of it too? Is that where we're at? And that part of it we may have to, we've got to have some serious discussions about this. I mean, we've beat around the bush a little bit and we're not sure where we're going. And, are we going to let some people farm, some of the peanut line? Some people, say from Williamstown to Cornwall, not allowed to farm any of the peanut line. And is there a way that we can put something in there and maybe say that, that part is going to be reviewed as we, discuss our peanut line strategy a little further? We will not, there's talk of a study. Is that going to be something that's covered in there? I'm not sure where to go with that, but if we put it in an agreement that, we're basically saying you can go ahead and use a certain amount of our peanut line, then that is an official that we're opening that up to, maybe a big can of worms there. So I don't know. We've kind of just been turning a blind eye at this point, and I'm not sure where to go from here, but I think we want to be careful of that, and at least want this to be something that can be relooked at or reworked as our strategy for the peanut line develops, and we progress a little further down that road.
Well, I guess the other concern I have in regards to that, and I agree with Councillor Lang, but are we premature by doing this agreement before we even have the study done? Is that should it be kind of have the study done to see what we're going to do with that property or what the recommendations are, and then do the agreement? Or are we? I'm not sure if we're one step ahead or for 2 steps behind. So, Mrs. Haley, and then I'll go to Deputy Mayor Ward.
I just want to make sure we're not holding up the Rymans. They've started construction on a barn, and I don't want to see us putting a stop to that.
Yeah, so I don't think we
something a work in progress maybe.
Yeah, I don't think we put a stop to it, but I just think we have to have the right agreement when we come down to the right agreement. So, Mrs. Haley.
So to answer that question, Mr. Mayor, in the building permit was issued with a condition, and the condition was that the Rymans enter into an agreement by framing stage. They are framing it. We haven't stopped them because we were writing the agreement and we're waiting for that additional information. I feel, and I would like to hear Chief Robertson's comments on this. I feel it's not premature for an agreement because at this point, we're aware of the traffic that's occurring on that site during construction. So the sooner that we have an agreement in place, the better for liability reasons. I don't think holding it up for a study to be completed is the right answer. Issuing the agreement with the Ryman's understanding that it may be amended in the future is a risk, because if they don't agree to the amendment, they may not sign the agreement. But if we work with them now and explain to them that it could mean that it's no longer, I still don't know if I've got all the council's feedback yet, but if it's no longer a 6 meter setback versus no usage of the allowance of the peanut line, we can kind of explain that and hope for their cooperation. I'd rather get the wording right now if possible, but I understand the dilemma you're in concerns with what your decision would be for the entire peanut line.
Well, I guess, and that's the question, I guess, and that's what I was saying. I'm just wondering in regards to the study, because the study may come up with certain things we do with peanut line, but the study may show us that we don't really require the additional lands on both sides, that we could lease it out or have a contract with the farmers, budding farmers, that to give them the opportunity of using those portion of lands. But I mean, I don't know what the right answer is. I just want to make sure, again, if we're going to sign an agreement, make sure we have the right one in place. But it's going to be a template that we're going to be using probably right across the whole peanut line from, I guess, the 40 kilometers. I would suggest it at any point if any farmers that want to use it. So we have to make decisions regards: are we going to allow them on the municipal property, or are we going to take over the whole space that the township owns? I guess is the question. But there is a few questions out there. That's Deputy Mayor Warden, then Councillor McDonnell, then Councillor Jaworski.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think in this instance, I think there needs to be no use of the township property through this corridor in the interest of safety. It's not about being unfair. I think it's in the interest of safety. They in this specific situation, they have a farming operation on both sides that is very active. And I feel in order for us to protect future potential users of the peanut line, I think we have to do our due diligence and demand that the setback is the property line, nothing on the property line, for safety's sake. And I don't think that it has to be the same across the whole peanut line. I think we as a council can make site-specific decisions. And in this situation, I think that in safety's sake, the property line must be obeyed.
Okay, I will go to Councillor McDonnell, and if you have questions or comments on something else, can you comment, I guess, and if you're in favor or disagree with Deputy Mayor Warden's comment, just so we can move forward?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment as far as the four-way stop is concerned. I definitely disagree with that. I think it should only be on the farm operation side. Somebody's just going to wind up getting hurt there. I think if we put a four-way, maybe some yielding or caution signs ahead would be better. I don't necessarily disagree with the Deputy Warden on that. I think it's probably best as far as for building and for storage of implements and things such as that. We best just keep it off our property just for liability's sake, whether it's a cultivator or whatnot that's parked there, or there's other spots along there, whether it's tile drainage lines and things such as that are in rows stacked up along the side. Things like that move, but the last thing you need is a heavy piece of equipment and someone running into it in the dark. Just I think for liability's sake for us, they have no interest anyways in building on our property, and it's best we just keep a safe separation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. To what Deputy Mayor Warden was saying, like I think that this is a more intense use than what we're going to see, and I think it's better. And I think because they're working already, we need to get this agreement into place soon. And I think that we should, the setback should be the property line. And if, to your point, Mayor, about, the study and could this potentially change things, I think, you know, at this point, we've gone out to the max, and if the study shows us that we don't need what we need, then we could always, you know, revisit the agreement and tell, you know, to be consistent with what the vision is going forward. But I think it's better to give ourselves leeway now to move this forward quickly.
Okay, so the question to Mrs. Haley or Mr. Robertson is, do we want to postpone this until we get more information back in regards to the stop signs? And then also the recommendation in regards to the moving it to the property lines. Is that fair at this point, Chief Robertson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel it's important that maybe we circle back to the four-way stop for a moment. And if I can maybe just put it in simple terms once again, just to explain what my concern is for the terrain in that space. I fully understand and agree with advanced notice and maybe coming up with, and the agreement doesn't speak to exactly what the advanced notification signage will be. We can use best practice for that. My concern is seasonally, especially in the winter, we know that the snow groomers that travel that section want to leave a certain amount of snow there for those reasons. It's not groomed right down to bare ground, whereas the crossing will be cleared right to bare ground. So if there is a foot of snow remaining on both sides, unless there's very clear signage, and I'm just not sure if caution signage versus stop signage would be enough. When someone is coming through at speed and hits that drop, that's our concern for safety reasons. We can look for best practice on how best to sign it, but that was our feeling, to put and make it a full four-way stop so that all users will be the safest that they could possibly be. So.
Okay, thank you. So I guess, go ahead, Mrs. Haley.
Mr. Mayor, I would feel more comfortable if council were to defer this, only because if the things that I need to change in writing, I would prefer if council reviews it one more time to ensure we've captured what your requirements are. And I don't believe 2 more weeks will really be a big concern. I will review the building permit file with our chief building official tomorrow. And if we feel we need to amend the agreement just to have the wording a little more clear, to give a little more time, that's certainly something we can do without going back to council, because that's within the role of the chief building official. And we'll make sure they're consistent. So if council's happy with that, then we'll put something on the next agenda with the wording that you would prefer.
Okay, I think that's what council is looking for.
Okay.
So, Madam Clerk, do I have to read the motion, or are we just going to defer it?
You will read it and take a vote to defer, please.
Okay. I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Lyle Worden. Be resolved that staff report 72-2021 be received, and bylaw 43-2021 being a bylaw to enter into an agreement between Otto and Rita Ryman and the Township of South Glengarry for the property legally described as part of Lot 4, Concession 2, NRR, in the geographic Township of Charlottenburg, now in the Township of South Glengarry, in the County of Glengarry, also known as 20212 Cedar Grove Road, PIN number 6712-30451, and PIN number 6712-30450, being the parcels of a property located on both north and south side of the peanut line. We read a first, second, third time, passed, signed, and sealed the 17th day, 2021. And furthermore, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute this agreement. So I guess the question on the table is, I will ask who's in favor of postponing this until the next meeting of council. Okay, thank you. So I'm sorry?
Need a motion to defer, or you're just going to, the way it was read was that we're
I have options. I can carry it, defeat it, or postpone it. So we're going to postpone it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Haley. Okay, we'll move into other business. So the first one on the agenda is hydro outages. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So just a bit of background. I had a resident from South Lancaster who brought to my attention, some time ago, the issue of, the frequent power outages that we have in South Glengarry, South Lancaster in particular. I don't have official statistics, but anecdotally, there's been 3 unplanned outages that affected South Lancaster in 2021. In particular, that most recent outage on April 23rd that actually impacted most of South Glengarry, from Martintown to Baynesville due to a pole fire. I also reached out to a few homeowners in South Lancaster to inquire on comments that I'd heard about the reliability of their system there. And so I had several comments that they have these power outages that I've already referred to, these 3, but they also have on average 5 to 10 brownouts per year when the power goes off and on, without hydro intervention. So, and then last, one of the residents who's been looking into this shared some information that seems to indicate that our hydro system is a bit unique in that we are on a single radial feed of power. There's no loop. Most areas receive power coming from like 2 main lines. And so that's why, a disruption, and it seems one disruption can affect such a large part of our area. So my ask today to council is that I hope that council would support the idea of staff looking into this issue further. I realize it's not something that's specifically part of our mandate, but reliable key infrastructure is key to economic development. And I don't see how our residents can effectively deal with this situation on their own. So I think that we're the next, we are the logical body to try and look into this a bit more. And through our, connectivity committee staff, Ms. Baggs, they have a lot of contacts already in this area. And so perhaps we could get some, something looked into and some improvements made. So that's my request.
Okay, thank you. I'll just ask for a show of hands that if council's in support for administration to go out and try and get some more information to bring back to council, and if we have to send a letter off to hydro. So I don't see where it's going to hurt to try and get some more information and send a letter off. So thank you, Councillor Jaworski. We'll have that handed over to the proper staff and do some investigation and come back with more answers. And if we have to sign a letter on behalf of myself as the mayor, we will certainly do that. So thank you for bringing that forward. Okay, the next one is the school board consultation, I guess it would be. Deputy Mayor Warden, if you would.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. Recently, there was an email sent out by the school board stating that the school times for this fall will be changing. They're basically splitting up the start times for Charland and Williamstown Public, as well as other campus schools throughout the district. This is going to negatively affect many families that have children that attend both schools. So before, they used to start, school times were about 15 minutes apart. They would drop the kids off at the high school and then head over to the public school and then drop those kids off, or vice versa. Well, now the buses are going to come in to Williamstown, drop the high school kids off, and then they're going to head back out, do another round, and pick up the elementary school kids. Anyways, I don't understand the rationale behind it, but there was no consultation done with local families. The school board said at our council meeting this morning, there was consultation done. There was zero consultation. And so I would like council's support in passing a resolution asking them to pause and do some consultation. It's ridiculous. We send them a lot of money per year out of our property taxes, and we get no representation, very, very little representation. And I feel like we as a council have to stand for our local families, because there's this is going to affect them on many levels. I mean, think of the parents whose kids are very active in extracurricular activities. Like, where does that leave them on that end? It's just, this is not good all around. I could continue to go on. So I believe if I get a seconder, I believe the clerk has a motion or ready, and I believe Councillor Jaworski wants to say something.
Well,
Okay,
Mhm.
go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank Deputy Mayor Warden for bringing up the issue at County Council today, and really highlighting the issue that there hasn't been consultation in this situation, and there hasn't been an acknowledgement of the impact that it's going to have on families that have kids in both schools, and how we're unique in that we have this campus approach. And we are reasonable people, though. If they can actually explain how this is beneficial to us, I think we're reasonable. But insofar, there was no consultation, so there was no opportunity to explain that. So thank you very much for bringing it up again. And I definitely support your resolution.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify and make sure that everyone does know that it is the Upper Canada District School Board, the ones that we had that conversation with this point. So I do have a motion. I'll read it. And Councillor Jaworski, if you're comfortable with it, I presume you were going to second the motion. So whereas the Upper Canada District School Board and the Catholic District School Board of Eastern Ontario, in partnership with the Student Transportation of Eastern Ontario, began implementing unified bell times to facilitate a standard length of school day. And whereas the elementary school bell times will occur between 9:15 a.m., 9:30 a.m., while all secondary school bell times will occur at 8 a.m. And whereas in many communities, elementary and high schools are in the same buildings, with children from the same families attending both levels of schooling, resulting in challenges for parents in obtaining childcare and transportation to accommodate both school schedules. Now therefore be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry hereby urges the Upper Canada District School Board to complete an additional extensive consultation prior to the implementation of the unified bell times, and furthermore, that this resolution be forwarded to the Upper Canada District School Board, Catholic District School Board of Eastern Ontario, the Student Transportation of Eastern Ontario, MPP Jim McDonnell, Education Minister Stephen Leslie, and all municipalities within the Upper Canada District School Board. Deputy Mayor Warden, does that cover everything you're looking for?
I'm very happy with that. I appreciate you guys listening to it. So I hope you're supportive.
Thank you. Councillor Jaworski, will you second that motion?
I will, but I think there's one line where it says that they're in the same buildings.
It does state that.
Yeah, I think it's maybe, let's say, neighboring buildings. We don't, since they've closed RO secondary, we do not have technically a K-12 anymore. So it would be neighboring, like WPS is the neighbor to Charland.
Yeah, but is there not Williamstown Public classes in Charland building?
Yes,
there are
Yes.
Because we have no room, right?
Correct. So
we're bursting out. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, if you want to look at it, I'm just thinking of how they're going to receive it. The Upper Canada,
Right.
They're going to receive it and say that they don't have any K-12s.
Okay.
Perhaps you could
We can
say
change it to,
in the same and neighboring. You could
Right.
you could have both.
Sure.
yeah, we'll
That's
just add
fine.
both. That's what I was going to recommend. Elementary, high schools are in the same building and neighboring schools, I guess.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So Madam Clerk, I'll get you to change that. Okay, so it was moved by Lyle Warren, second by Councillor Jaworski. All in favor of that motion? The motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next one on the agenda was in regards to outdoor recreation. Mayor McDonald or McDonnell brought a motion to County Council this morning in regards to asking the Premier of Ontario and his ministry to open up outdoor golf and outdoor activities prior to the opening of the lockdown of June 2nd. So that was passed at County Council, and it was asked that each municipality process D&G support the motion. So we asked to have it moved to our council for this evening, because we're not coming back till after the lockdown is complete. So Deputy Mayor Warden, if you want to have any other comments.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. It's actually it was the resolution forwarded from the city of Brantford, I believe.
Yes, you're correct.
Sorry, yeah, I wanted to make that, and we did pass it, and I 100% support it, and hope council members will as well.
Okay, so I will read the motion. It's moved by Lyle Warden. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry hereby supports the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, and the resolution from the City of Brantford regarding the reopening of golf and outdoor activities, and that this resolution of support be sent to the Premier of Ontario, MPP Jim McDonnell, and SDNG municipalities. So if somebody can second that motion for me, please. Second by Martin Lang. And are all in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor Warden. Okay, now we're going to go into the other additionals of ones that came out of the information purposes. So Councillor Jaworski, I'll let you lead. I think you can speak about the three top ones probably at the same time. Is that correct? They're the
Sure.
corporate services, finance services, and recreation facilities. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can do that. Okay. All right. So starting with corporate services, I just wanted to say a brief couple of positive words about the community guide that was recently sent out. I found it to be extremely handy, and I thought that there was lots of really good information in it. So I just wanted to express my thanks to staff who put that together. And also on the new council meeting newsletter, which is sort of a wrap up of what's happened at council. I think that's a great addition to our communication tools to sort of give a quick snap of what's happening at council, because sometimes it's very difficult for residents to flip through agendas as a whole. So I think it's a really nice service to be offering. So thank you for that. With regards to the finance services, again, a quick word of thanks, acknowledgement on the Where Do My Taxes Go info sheet. I thought that was a very nice infographic on explaining on where, you know, the major costs are of the services in South Glengarry. I thought that was really nice. And also just an acknowledgement also that I see that the work on the Kennedy Redwood rates, water rates is still ongoing. I'm glad to see that that's still being worked. With regards, so the final one, with regards to the recreation and facilities, I wanted to comment specifically, I see there's a line there about how contractors have completed the replacement of the doors at the museum. And so I just wanted to comment that my understanding is in fact that work is not entirely complete. I understand that there'd like to be some enhancements to those doors to have them more in keeping with the heritage style of the building. And so I just want to highlight and express that my hope that staff will continue to work closely with the museum curator and the board of the museum to ensure that you know, the final product really is respectful of the heritage nature of the building. And I expect that probably that will really take effect when the new, if and when we have a new recreation director individual. So just thanks to all involved. I know folks were trying to keep it very much to a specific budget on that project, but I hope also, I'd like to say that if in the end to do the work in keeping with the building, if there needs to be an increase to the budget, I hope that that's something that can be brought back to council so that we can consider that. Okay, so that's my comments on that one.
Thank you very much. And number 7 is the Glenwalter Park Tree Management Plan.
Yes. So I read with interest the information report that was put together on what the tree management plan will be for Glenwalter Park. I mean, Glenwalter Park is a gem. It is highly prized by the residents around it and used extensively. And it's very nice to see the diligent and detailed approach that is going to be taken to deal with you know, the trees that are being affected by the emerald ash borer. So it seems like a very professional way. I like how there's a communication plan that is already being developed to engage the residents, because again, it's a very important site. People are very attached to it. And I think all that work is very important to ensure that the community is engaged and understanding of the work that is being done there. So I just want to say that I really appreciate the efforts that staff is doing in putting that plan together.
Okay, thank you. And number 9 is Pitch In Canada participation results.
Yep. So that was the recent activity sponsored that the township promoted, where folks went and cleaned up, an area close to home. And me and my family, we participated, and it was I see in the report that they had 33 group registrations that included 155 individual participants across the township, and the list of roads that were cleaned up was truly amazing. So kudos to township staff who organized that, and thank you, a big thank you to all the residents who participated as well, and to make South Glengarry even more beautiful.
Thank you. I'll go to Madam Clerk. Did you have a comment towards that, or?
I do.
Okay.
I just wanted to build on Councillor Jaworski's comments and thank our Deputy Clerk, Crystal Lebrun, as well as our Economic Development and Communications Coordinator, Shauna Baggs, who the two of them organized this project. I know Crystal put a lot of work into organizing that and getting packages ready for the teams, and Shauna did a great job on the social media promoting the campaign. And I think the numbers speak for themselves, and we got a lot of engagement from the community, and this was a really positive project. So a thank you to Crystal and Shauna for all their hard work on that project.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to concur with what Councillor Jaworski said about the financing, where your tax dollars go. I think that this needs to be promoted as much as possible throughout social media and other avenues. I think if people understand where their dollars go, it may, it'll help them understand a little better. I think we do a good job here, and I really like the little artwork that was done. I think it was good. And again, in regards to the trees in the Glen Walter Park, I read that report. Maybe putting a sign up ahead of time explaining what's going on before any of the trees are actually cut down would probably do a favor, and just letting the public know through social media and a physical sign at the entrance to the park, as I'm sure we will be getting calls even though it's just proper maintenance. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mills, did you have a comment towards that?
I'll let Councillor Lang go first.
Thank you. Councillor Lang.
Yes, this is just a question for Chief Robertson or whoever might be able to answer this, or even take a guess at it. Would you think that more than 50% of the trees in Glen Walter Park are ash trees? This is kind of my own guess, and if so, we're really going to have to do something there, or we're going to lose most, if not more than half of our trees in the next couple of years.
Well, I can take the first part. So we have indications upwards of 70% of the trees are emerald ash.
Yeah, just to build on that through you, Mr. Mayor, definitely of the trees that are in the open sections or along the pathways, they're definitely ash trees. There's a significant, probably 25 to 30% of the park is actually naturalized spaces. So I can't really speak to those other than just looking from the outside, but definitely we have a serious concern with what's going to happen over the next number of years.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Chief Robertson and I walked the park today around the 2 kilometer track. I would encourage, given the importance and also the visibility of this and how it'll generate certainly a lot of conversation, I would encourage council to walk it too. As you mentioned, Councillor Jaworski, it's a jam. There were a lot of people out there walking today, and we anticipate a lot of activity even on the holiday weekend this weekend. Staff have been out there doing a great work. They were cutting the grass today, and the park's very clean and very well used.
Okay, thank you. I do agree with Councillor Lang. I believe it was that stated that we need to educate the public as much as we possibly can on a regular basis that what's occurring, and it may not only be occurring this year, maybe what's going to happen or occur over the next number of years in regards to replacing a bunch of these trees. So we make sure that they're fully aware of that, and we do have a plan in place in regards to replacing them on a regular basis. Okay, thank you. And Councillor Jaworski, I believe your last one is a letter resolution request from MP Mr. Eric Duncan.
Yes, it is. So and this is actually the second time that a request for this has actually come through the agenda package, but considering that this is something coming from our MPP, I thought it was very important, sorry, our MP, not our MP. I thought it was very, I mean, it is a very important initiative, and it's very nice to see that he's supporting it as well. So it has to do with rolling out a suicide crisis hotline that is not, you know, a 10-digit number. It's, you know, using that 3-digit, sort of similar to 911, but in this case, it would be 988. That would be used as a national 3-digit suicide and crisis hotline number. And my understanding is there's a push to be doing this all across North America as well, just with, you know, the better understanding of that folks who are in crisis need somewhere to turn. And certainly the pandemic has also highlighted that through isolation, that there is, you know, there are folks who really need this service. So let's try and find the good in the situation and try and put something in place that should be really in place all the time. So I just wanted the council's support for supporting this motion.
Okay, thank you. Watching the House of Commons a week ago or so, I can't remember if it was MP Duncan or another member of Parliament, but it was certainly a discussion they had in the House of Commons a few weeks ago, but I can't remember who was the first one that brought it up. I do have a motion, but I'll go to Councillor McDonnell and then I'll read the motion.
I'd be happy to second the motion if you need one.
I do need one. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. That's good.
Okay, I'll read the motion. I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Sam McDonnell. Whereas the federal government has passed a motion to adopt 988, a national 3-digit suicide and crisis hotline. And whereas the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has increased the demand for suicide prevention services by 200%. Whereas the existing suicide prevention hotlines require the user to remember a 10-digit number and go through directories or be placed on hold. And whereas in 2022, the United States will have in place a national 988 crisis hotline. And whereas the Council of the Township of South Glengarry recognizes that it is a significant and important initiative to ensure critical barriers are removed to those in a crisis and seeking help. Now therefore be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry endorses this 988 crisis line initiative. And furthermore, that the staff be directed to send a letter indicating such support to Mr. Eric Duncan, MPP, Jim McDonnell, the Federal Minister of Health, the CRTC, and the local area municipalities to indicate this support. Is that satisfactory, Councillor Jaworski? Okay, thank you. You heard the motion. All in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. Thank you for bringing that forward, Councillor Jaworski. Okay, I believe that was it for items taken out of the information purposes only. So I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry accepts the items presented on the agenda as committee reports and for information purposes only. All in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry convene to close session at 8:43 p.m. to discuss the following items under Section 239 of the Municipal Act SO 2001. A meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter be considered is a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or a local board, and it would relate to Staff Report 73-2021. You heard the motion. All in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. Thank you. So we will go into closed session.